I am Scarlett, 34, and literally last weekend, my rep as the family fixer? Yeah, it totally backfired. The stability I'd worked my butt off to keep solid, it blew up into a full-on family betrayal at our annual dinner. My parents and siblings, who always leaned on me, straight up demanded I grovel for their approval, and when I clapped back, the room went dead silent. "You're too selfish now," my mother yelled, with everyone staring like I'd burned the house down. But here's the tea. Their shade didn't break me. It lit a spark. I'm not just pushing back, I'm about to flip the script and change everything. A quick note. This story is copyrighted by the YouTube channel Guest Stories. Reposting, revoicing, or editing this content without permission constitutes copyright infringement. Thank you for respecting original creative work. Now back to the story. I've always been the steady one, the accountant who balanced everyone's chaos. Growing up, I was the kid who'd mediate fights, cover for my siblings' mistakes, and still get straight A's. But my family? They treated me like background noise. My parents, Linda and Greg, obsessed over money, how to make it, keep it, flaunt it. Dad's a retired car salesman who'd haggle over a nickel. Mom's a part-time realtor who'd sell a house for clout. My older brother, Derek, 38, is a hedge fund bro who brags about his bonuses. My sister, Emily, 36, married rich and posts her perfect life nonstop. Then there's me, Scarlett, the boring one who paid for family vacations and never got a thank you. Last weekend, everything changed. I won $47 million in the lottery. Yes, million. I sat in my tiny apartment staring at the ticket, my hands shaking as I checked the numbers on my phone. 1, 3, 7, 22, 40, 55. Jackpot. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd pass out. I didn't scream or call anyone. I just sat there, the ticket clutched in my sweaty palm, my mind racing. This was my escape, my power. But I couldn't tell my family. Not yet. Their history with money was complicated. Fights over inheritances, loans never repaid, snide remarks about who deserved what. I'd seen them claw at each other like vultures. If they knew about the win, they'd swarm me. So I kept it secret. I didn't buy a mansion or a sports car. I stayed in my one-bedroom, drove my old Honda, and went to work like nothing happened. But inside, I was burning. For years, I'd been their doormat, paying for Mom's surgeries, bailing Derek out of bad investments, even covering Emily's kids' private school fees when her husband forgot. They took, I gave, and they never once asked how I was. I was done being invisible. That's when the idea hit me, sharp and clear, like a bell ringing in my head. An experiment, a test. What if I flipped the script? I'd tell them I lost my job, that I was broke, desperate. I'd ask for help, not because I needed it, but to see who they really were. Would they step up, or would they prove what I'd always feared? That their love was conditional, tied to what I could give them. My stomach twisted at the thought, but I had to know. I folded the lottery ticket, tucked it into a locked drawer, and started planning. The annual family dinner was coming up, the one event I couldn't skip without a lecture. It was at Mom and Dad's house, a gaudy McMansion they'd stretched to afford. I sat at my desk, my fingers tapping nervously on the wood, picturing their faces when I dropped the bomb. Derek would probably scoff, Emily would roll her eyes, and Mom would launch into a speech about tough love. But Aunt Martha, my mom's older sister, might surprise me. She was different. Quiet, widowed, living in a modest condo on a teacher's pension. She'd always sent me handwritten birthday cards. The only one who remembered my favorite color was green. I stood up, pacing my small living room, my sneakers squeaking on the hardwood. The weight of the secret pressed on me, but it also felt like armor. For the first time, I held the power. I wasn't just Scarlett, the reliable one. I was Scarlett, the one who'd exposed the truth. I stopped pacing, my reflection staring back from the window. My jaw was set, my eyes sharp. This wasn't just about money, it was about respect, loyalty, family, or the lack of it. By the end of that dinner, I'd know who they really were. And then, I'd decide who got to stay in my life. The days leading up to the dinner dragged on, but my mind kept drifting back to all the times I'd been shoved aside like an afterthought in my own family. I was sitting in my kitchen that evening, nursing a cup of lukewarm coffee, the steam curling up lazily as I stared at the chipped mug in my hands. My fingers traced the rim absent-mindedly, the ceramic cool against my skin, while memories flooded in unbidden. It wasn't just one incident. It was a pattern. Etched deep from childhood, where my quiet wins were eclipsed by the flashy triumphs of Derek and Emily. I clenched the mug tighter, feeling the handle dig into my palm, as I let myself sink into those recollections, piecing together why this experiment felt so necessary. Take my high school graduation, for instance. I'd busted my gut to be valedictorian, staying up nights cramming calculus and literature, my desk lamp burning until dawn. My eyes would sting from the glare, my back aching from hunching over textbooks, but I pushed through because I wanted to make them proud. The ceremony was at the school auditorium, rows of plastic chairs squeaking under shifting bodies, the air thick with the scent of fresh-cut flowers from the stage. When they called my name, I walked up, my cap tassel swinging, heart hammering in my chest. I gave a speech about perseverance, my voice steady despite the nerves knotting my stomach. Applause rippled through the crowd, but when I glanced at my family in the third row, Mom was checking her watch, Dad was scrolling his phone, and Emily was whispering to Derek about her upcoming prom dress. No cheers, no proud smiles, just indifference. Later that night at the family dinner to celebrate, it was all about Emily's acceptance to that fancy liberal arts college. She'd gotten in with average grades, but Mom gushed over it like she'd cured cancer, her hands fluttering as she passed the mashed potatoes. "Our Emily's going places," she'd said, her eyes sparkling under the dining room chandelier. Derek chimed in with his football scholarship story for the umpteenth time, flexing his arm like he was still on the field, the table shaking slightly from his enthusiasm. I sat there, my diploma tucked under my chair, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face. When I tried to mention my speech, Dad waved it off, his fork pausing midair. "That's nice, Scar, but let's not bore everyone with school stuff." My throat tightened, a hot flush creeping up my neck, but I swallowed it down, picking at my peas instead. Then there was my college years. I worked 2 jobs. Waitressing at a diner where the grease clung to my hair and tutoring math to spoiled kids who barely paid attention, to put myself through accounting school without loans. I'd come home exhausted, my feet throbbing in cheap sneakers, collapsing on the couch with textbooks splayed open. One Christmas, I surprised everyone by graduating early, top of my class again, even landing an internship at a big firm. I wrapped the news in a card, my handwriting neat and hopeful, sliding it under the tree. But opening gifts that morning, with the pine scent filling the living room and lights twinkling, they barely glanced at it. "Good job, kiddo," Dad muttered, crumpling the card as he reached for Derek's gift, a new watch for his big promotion at the bank, which was really just a lateral move he hyped up. Mom fawned over Emily's engagement ring, holding it up to the light, cooing about the diamond's cut. My chest ached, like someone had punched me, but I busied myself collecting wrapping paper scraps, crumpling them in my fists to hide the tremble. Fast forward to my first real job promotion, 5 years ago. I'd clawed my way up at the accounting firm, handling audits that kept me up until 3 a.m., my eyes blurring from spreadsheets, coffee stains dotting my sleeves. When I got the senior accountant title, complete with a raise, I called home excited, my voice bubbling over the phone line. "That's great, Scarlett," Mom said, but her tone was distracted, like she was folding laundry. In the background, I heard Emily laughing about her latest vacation. The conversation shifted quickly to Derek's new car, a shiny SUV he earned from closing a deal. They threw him a party for it, grilling steaks in the backyard, music blaring from speakers. I showed up, gift in hand, a bottle of whiskey, only to hear Dad toast, "To Derek, the real go-getter." My smile froze, teeth gritted as I nodded along, my fingers twisting the napkin in my lap until it tore. Even smaller things stung, like birthdays. Mine always fell during tax season, so I'd get a rushed card with a $20 bill, while Emily's in summer meant beach trips, everyone pitching in. Derek's, lavish dinners where they'd recount his glory days. I'd stand in the kitchen washing dishes after, suds up to my elbows, listening to their laughter echo from the living room, feeling like a ghost in my own home. My hands would prune in the hot water, but I'd scrub harder, as if I could wash away the hurt. Sitting there in my kitchen now, the coffee gone cold, I set the mug down with a soft clink, my shoulders slumping. These weren't just old wounds, they were proof. My achievements, steady, reliable, were invisible because they didn't flash like Derek's bonuses or Emily's Instagram life. I was the safety net, not the star. My breath came shallow, fists unclenching slowly on the table. This lottery win? It was my turn to shine, but first the test. I needed to see if they'd catch me when I fell, or if they'd let me crash. The thought sent a chill down my spine, but also a resolve that straightened my back. I pushed the chair out, the legs scraping the floor, and stood. The dinner was in 2 days. Time to prepare my story, the job loss, the plea for help. My reflection in the microwave door looked determined, eyes narrowed. Whatever happened, I'd finally know the truth. As I stood there in the kitchen, the fluorescent light buzzing faintly overhead, my hand still gripping the edge of the counter for support, I couldn't shake the image of that lottery ticket from my mind. It was like a talisman now, hidden away but pulling at me constantly. The dinner loomed, but before I could face them I needed to relive how I'd gotten here, the exact moment everything shifted, when luck handed me a hammer to smash the mold they'd trapped me in. I walked slowly to my bedroom, my socks whispering against the carpet, and unlocked the drawer with a small key from my pocket. The ticket lay there, crisp and unassuming, but touching it sent a jolt through my fingers, straight to my core. This wasn't just paper. It was the secret I'd built in silence, the one that had me questioning every tie I had. I sat on the bed, the mattress dipping under my weight, and let the memory wash over me, every detail sharp as if it were happening again. It started 3 weeks ago, on a rainy Friday evening after work. I'd stopped at the corner gas station on my way home, the wipers slapping rhythmically against the windshield, smearing the neon lights outside. My shoulders were hunched from a long day of crunching numbers, my blouse sticking to my back from the humidity. I wasn't a big lottery player, maybe once a month for fun, but that day, something nudged me. I pushed open the car door, rain pattering on my umbrella as I dashed inside, the bell jingling overhead. The clerk, an older guy with a faded tattoo on his arm, nodded as I asked for a quick pick. "Mega Millions, huh? Dream big," he said, sliding the ticket across the counter. I paid with a crumpled 10, my nails tapping impatiently on the glass case of candy bars. Tucking the ticket into my wallet, I didn't think much of it. Just another small rebellion against my predictable life. That night, alone in my apartment, I kicked off my shoes by the door, the thud echoing in the quiet space, and collapsed onto the couch with takeout Chinese. The TV droned in the background, some reality show about rich families squabbling over nonsense, which only soured my mood further. I forked lo mein absent-mindedly, the noodles slipping through the tines while scrolling my phone. The lottery drawing was live streaming. I pulled it up on a whim, my thumb hovering before pressing play. The announcer's voice crackled through the speakers, polished and enthusiastic. "And tonight's numbers are..." One by one they matched. 1. My fork paused midair. 3. I set the container down, sauce dripping onto the coffee table. 7. My breath caught, a small gasp escaping. 22. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, staring at the screen. 40. My hands started trembling, the phone nearly slipping from my grip. 55. Jackpot. The room spun for a second. I blinked hard, rubbing my eyes with the heels of my hands, convinced it was a glitch. But no, the numbers stared back, unyielding. $47 million. My heart slammed against my ribs like a trapped bird, my pulse thundering in my ears. I grabbed the ticket from my purse on the floor, unfolding it with fingers that felt numb, comparing each digit slowly, deliberately. Match! 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 A laugh bubbled up, short and disbelieving, but it turned into a sob. I pressed my hand to my mouth, nails digging into my cheek, tears blurring the ink. This was real. I paced the living room, bare feet padding on the cool floor, back and forth, my mind a whirlwind. What now? Quit my job? Buy a house? Tell everyone? That's when the struggle hit, hard and unrelenting. I stopped pacing, sinking into the armchair, my legs curling under me as the rain hammered the window pane. Telling my family flashed first. They'd be thrilled, right? But then the doubts crept in, slithering like shadows. I saw Dad's eyes lighting up, not with pride but calculation. We could invest in that property I've been eyeing. Mom's hug, tight but expectant. Finally, something to brag about. Derek would slap my back, grinning, "Sis, hook me up with a loan for my next flip." Emily's squeal, "We can all go on a cruise. My treat. Wait, no, yours." My stomach churned, a sour twist that made me hug my knees tighter. Years of their greed replayed. The time Derek borrowed my savings for a stock tip that tanked, never repaying. Emily's wedding where I footed the bill for flowers because you're good with money, parents' retirement party I organized and paid for, only for them to toast everyone but me. If they knew I'd be their ATM, not their daughter. I stood again, my knees popping, and went to the kitchen for water, the faucet sputtering as I filled a glass. Gulping it down, cold trickling over my chin, I wiped my mouth with my sleeve. No, this win was mine. Built in secret, it had to stay that way. But keeping it hidden, that was the intense part. The next days blurred into a haze of caution. I called in sick to work Monday, my voice steady on the phone despite the quake inside, then drove 2 hours to the lottery office in the state capital, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel. The building was nondescript, gray concrete under overcast skies. Inside, the waiting room smelled of stale coffee, chairs creaking as I sat, ticket folded in my pocket like a bomb. When they called me, a woman in a crisp suit led me to a back room, her heels clicking on linoleum. "Congratulations," she said, shaking my hand firmly, her grip cool and professional. I signed forms with a pen that slipped in my sweaty palm, opting for the lump sum after taxes, about $28 million wired anonymously. "No publicity?" she confirmed, eyebrow arched. I nodded, my throat dry. "None." Walking out, check in hand, metaphorically the wire confirmation on my phone, I felt exposed, glancing over my shoulder at every passerby. Back home, I deposited it via app, my finger hovering before confirming, then watched the balance skyrocket. No fanfare. Just me alone, staring at zeros that changed everything. But the real aha came that night, lying in bed, sheets twisted around my legs as insomnia gripped me. The isolation hit. Years of being taken for granted, now amplified by this secret fortune. Why not test them? My eyes snapped open in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan whirring lazily. Pretend I'm broke, jobless, ask for help. See who shows up. The idea crystallized, sharp and thrilling, my breath quickening. It was painful to admit I needed proof, but necessary. I rolled over, punching the pillow, but resolve settled in my chest like a weight lifting. This was my hidden success. Not just the money, but the clarity it bought. By morning, the plan was set. I'd lose my job, plead at the dinner. My least affluent relative, Aunt Martha, popped into mind. She'd offer what little she had, I bet. The others? Excuses. It hurt, anticipating their betrayal, but it fueled me. Now, back in the present, ticket in hand on my bed, I refolded it carefully, my thumbs smoothing the creases. The dinner was tomorrow night. I'd rehearse my lines in the mirror, practice the tremor in my voice. My reflection would show a woman transformed, eyes steely beneath the feigned vulnerability. This secret wasn't just built, it was armored. Whatever their reactions, I'd have the truth, and the freedom to walk away. With the ticket back in its hiding spot, the drawer clicking shut like a final punctuation on my resolve, I moved to the bathroom mirror as planned, the fluorescent bulb flickering to life with a soft hum. The eve of the family dinner had arrived, and here I was, on the brink of unleashing this fabricated crisis that could shatter illusions I'd clung to for too long. My fortune was secured, the wire transfer confirmed days ago, sitting untouched in a new account, but it felt like a live wire in my veins, buzzing with potential. I wasn't just preparing for a meal, I was arming myself for judgment, rehearsing the role of the desperate daughter, while the real me, the millionaire in disguise, watched from behind my eyes. I leaned in closer to the mirror, my breath fogging the glass slightly, and began practicing the lines that would set the trap, every word a step toward clarity or heartbreak. I started with the basics, staring at my reflection, noting the faint lines around my eyes from years of squinting at ledgers. I lost my job," I said softly, testing the waver in my voice, making it crack just enough to sound genuine. My lips trembled on cue, but inside, my mind was steady, calculating. I adjusted my posture, slumping my shoulders to look defeated, my hands gripping the sink's edge until my knuckles whitened. The porcelain was cold under my palms, grounding me as I repeated it louder. They downsized, and I was let go. I don't know what to do. A tear welled up, not forced but from the raw truth of how invisible I'd felt. It tracked down my cheek, and I wiped it away with the back of my hand, the skin there rough from nervous picking. This wasn't all acting. The pain was real, layered under the deception. As I paced the small bathroom, tiles cool against my bare feet, I expanded the script, imagining their faces. I need help, just a loan to tide me over until I find something. My voice echoed off the walls, hollow at first, then firmer as I refined it. I gestured with one hand as if pleading across the dinner table, my fingers curling into a loose fist before opening again, vulnerable. But vulnerability was the bait. I stopped, facing the mirror once more, and tried the full plea. "Mom, Dad, please, I've always been there for you. Can't you help me now?" The words tasted bitter, like the coffee grounds I'd forgotten to rinse from my mug earlier. I knew their likely responses. Dad's lecture on bootstraps, his voice booming as he adjusted his glasses, Mom's excuses about tight budgets, her hands wringing a napkin, Derek's scoff, leaning back in his chair with crossed arms, Emily's sympathetic but empty nod, checking her phone under the table. The reluctance gnawed at me, a knot in my stomach that tightened with each rehearsal. Why was I even going? I could cancel, claim illness, and vanish into my new life. But no, the test was essential. I turned on the faucet, splashing cold water on my face, droplets clinging to my lashes as I patted dry with a towel that smelled faintly of lavender detergent. The mirror cleared as the fog dissipated, revealing my determined expression. This dinner wasn't just dreaded. It was the culmination, the verge of a life-changing revelation. With $47 million, I could buy freedom, but first, I needed to sever the chains. I practiced one more time, adding a hitch in my breath. "Aunt Martha, what do you think?" Her name softened my tone. She was the wild card, the one who might prove not everyone was poisoned by self-interest. Moving to my closet, I rifled through hangers clinking together, selecting an outfit. Simple jeans and a blouse, nothing flashy, to sell the down-on-my-luck story. My fingers brushed the fabric, soft but worn, as I laid it on the bed. Ironing it later would be a ritual, the steam hissing as I pressed out wrinkles, mirroring how I'd smooth my nerves. But for now, I sat on the edge of the mattress, my weight sinking into the springs, and let the internal storm rage. Doubts swirled. What if they surprised me? Offered help without strings? My chest tightened at the hope, fragile as a soap bubble, but I popped it quickly. History said otherwise. I recalled last year's dinner, the way they'd toasted Derek's new house while I cleared plates, my arms aching from carrying trays, unheard thank yous swallowed. I stood again, restless, and went to the kitchen, pulling ingredients for a simple pasta dinner, my last quiet meal before the chaos. The pot clanged on the stove, water rushing in with a whoosh, as I chopped garlic, the knife thudding rhythmically on the board. Each slice released a pungent aroma, sharpening my focus. As it simmered, I leaned against the counter, arms crossed over my chest, feeling the steady rise and fall of my breathing. The fortune loomed in my thoughts, a silent partner urging me forward. I'd already consulted a financial advisor anonymously, her voice calm over the phone as she outlined trusts and investments, my notes scribbled on a pad now tucked away. But tonight, it was about preparation, not planning the aftermath. The reluctance peaked as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows through the window blinds, striping the floor. I ate mechanically, fork scraping the plate, tasting little. Washing up, suds foaming under the hot stream, I let my mind wander to post-dinner possibilities. If they failed the test, as I feared, I'd reveal the win, watch their faces crumple, then walk out. My hands paused in the water, pruned fingers dripping at the thought of Aunt Martha's reaction. She'd offer her savings, I bet, her voice gentle, hands clasping mine. That generosity would be the balm, the reason to reward her later. Drying my hands on a dish towel, twisting it tightly before hanging it up, I returned to the mirror for one final run-through. "I've got nothing left," I whispered, eyes locking on my own, the steel beneath the feigned despair gleaming. Satisfied, I flicked off the light, the room plunging into dusk. Bed called, but sleep would be fitful, sheets tangling as I tossed, rehearsing in dreams. Tomorrow, the dinner, the judgment. My heart raced at the edge of it all, but I embraced the dread. It was the price of truth. Lying in the dark, hands folded over my stomach, I breathed deeply, in and out, steeling for the battle. This eve wasn't just preparation. It was the quiet, before the storm, that would redefine everything. The morning light filtered through my blinds in thin stripes, pulling me from a restless sleep where dreams of accusatory faces had twisted my sheets into knots. I swung my legs over the bed's edge, feet hitting the cool floor with a soft thud, and rubbed my eyes, the grit of exhaustion lingering. Today was the dinner, the gauntlet I'd set for myself, and as I brewed coffee, the machine gurgling and spitting steam. I felt the weight of it settle like a stone in my gut. But there was no backing out. I dressed in the outfit I'd chosen last night, the jeans hugging my hips as I buttoned them, the blouse soft against my skin, but doing little to shield the vulnerability I was about to feign. Grabbing my keys, which jangled in my trembling hand, I headed out, the door clicking shut behind me like a starting gun. The drive to my parents' house took 40 minutes, the highway a blur of taillights and billboards under a gray sky that mirrored my mood. My fingers drummed on the steering wheel, nails clicking against the leather, as I mentally reviewed my plea one last time. Lost my job. Need help. The words looped in my head, each repetition tightening my throat. I merged onto the exit ramp, the car rumbling over potholes, and soon pulled into their driveway, the McMansion looming with its manicured lawn and flagstone path. Cars were already there, Derek's sleek SUV, Emily's minivan with kid stickers on the back. I parked behind them, engine ticking as it cooled, and sat for a moment, hands still gripping the wheel, breathing deeply to steady the flutter in my chest. Showtime. I stepped out, the gravel crunching under my sneakers, and walked to the door, my purse strap digging into my shoulder like an anchor. Before I could knock, Mom swung it open, her face lighting up in that practiced way, arms outstretched for a hug. "Scarlett, you're here," she exclaimed, pulling me in, her perfume overwhelming, a mix of floral and something sharp. I hugged back stiffly, my arms loose, feeling the bones in her back through her sweater. "Come in, everyone's waiting." She ushered me inside, her hand on my elbow guiding me like I might bolt, the door thumping shut. The living room buzzed with chatter, the air thick with the scent of roasting turkey and garlic from the kitchen. Dad lounged in his recliner, newspaper folded in his lap, glasses perched on his nose as he looked up. "There's my girl," he said, voice gruff, but his eyes flicked back to the sports scores almost immediately. Derek stood by the fireplace, beer in hand, his free fingers adjusting his watch, a flashy Rolex that caught the light. Emily sat on the couch, bouncing her toddler on her knee, the kid's chubby hands waving a toy. Aunt Martha was in the corner armchair, knitting quietly, her needles clicking softly, a warm smile breaking across her face when she saw me. "Scarlett, dear," she said, setting her yarn aside and standing for a quick embrace, her hug genuine, soft, and enveloping, without the theatrics. I forced a smile, my lips stretching tight, and murmured hellos, my voice catching slightly as I hung my coat on the rack, the hanger clanging against others. We migrated to the dining room as Mom called us, her voice carrying over the clatter of plates. The table was set impeccably, china gleaming, candles flickering in holders, a centerpiece of fall leaves that rustled when I brushed past. I took my usual seat between Emily and Aunt Martha, the chair scraping as I pulled it out, wood on wood echoing my unease. Silverware clinked as everyone settled, napkins unfolding with soft snaps. The initial small talk was innocuous, but I felt the undercurrent, like a storm building. Dad carved the turkey, knife slicing through with wet sounds, steam rising. "So Scarlett," he started, passing a plate, his eyes on me now, fork poised. "How's that accounting gig treating you? Still crunching those numbers?" His tone was casual, but there was an edge, like he expected the same old report. I nodded, swallowing dryly, my throat clicking, and speared a piece of meat, the tine scraping the plate. "It's been okay." I hedged, my fork hovering before I set it down, deciding this was the moment to ease in. But before I could steer it, Emily jumped in, her voice bright as she buttered a roll, knife scraping loudly. "Oh, Scar, you look tired. Long hours again? You should really think about a career change, something with more flair, like what I did with interior design." She laughed lightly, but her eyes scanned me critically, lingering on my simple blouse. I felt heat rise in my cheeks, my fingers twisting the napkin under the table, fabric bunching in my palm. "Yeah, maybe," I muttered, but inside resentment simmered. She'd designed one room and called it a business, funded by her husband's money. Derek chuckled, leaning back, his chair creaking. "Come on, Em, not everyone's cut out for the big leagues. Scarlett's steady, that's her thing." He winked at me, but it felt like a jab, his teeth flashing in a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Steady, boring, invisible. My jaw tightened, teeth grinding softly as I forced a laugh short and brittle. "Thanks, Derek." Aunt Martha patted my hand under the table, her touch light and reassuring, her skin warm against mine. "You're doing great, honey," she whispered, her voice a quiet anchor. The questions ramped up as sides were passed, mashed potatoes plopping onto plates, gravy boat tipping with glugs. Mom tilted her head, spooning green beans, her bracelet jangling. "But seriously, dear, any promotions? You've been there forever, don't want to get stuck, right?" Her smile was sympathetic, but her eyes darted to Emily's diamond ring as if comparing. I shifted in my seat, the cushion compressing, and cleared my throat, ready to drop the bomb. But Dad interjected, waving his knife. "In my day, you worked hard and climbed, no handouts." His gaze pinned me, expectant, like I owed him proof of worth. The backhanded compliments flowed like the wine being poured, glasses clinking as they filled. "You're so reliable, Scar. We can always count on you," Emily said, but then added, "Though you could loosen up, date more. Life's not all spreadsheets." Her laugh tinkled, but it stung, my free hand clenching into a fist on my lap, nails biting skin. Derek nodded, sipping his beer, foam on his lip. "Yeah, sis, you're the glue, but glue doesn't get the glory, am I right?" He slapped the table lightly, utensils rattling. I nodded weakly, my appetite gone, pushing food around my plate, the fork tracing patterns in the gravy. Aunt Martha tried to deflect, her voice gentle as she passed the rolls. "Scarlett's accomplished so much on her own, that's something to be proud of." But Mom waved it off, her hand fluttering. "Of course that, but family helps family push higher." The irony burned, I'd pushed them all, financially and otherwise. My heart pounded, ears ringing faintly as I gathered my courage, lips parting to speak the lie. The contempt was there, woven into every word, every glance averted or laced with pity. They saw me as the lesser one, the one who didn't shine. My breath shallowed, chest rising and falling quicker, but I held it together, waiting for the right pause. This gauntlet was just beginning. Each barb a test of my resolve, but the real trial, my plea, was coming. The candle flames danced erratically on the table, casting flickering shadows across the plates as I set my fork down with a deliberate clink, the sound cutting through the murmur of conversation like a signal. My heart hammered in my chest, each beat echoing in my ears, but I couldn't delay any longer. Their casual digs had built a pressure inside me that demanded release. I cleared my throat again, louder this time, my voice emerging shaky but clear. "Actually, everyone, there's something I need to tell you." Heads turned slowly, forks pausing midair, eyes locking on me with varying degrees of curiosity and impatience. Mom's eyebrow arched, her napkin dabbing at her lips. Dad leaned forward slightly, his chair creaking under the shift. Derek smirked faintly, swirling his wine glass. Emily tilted her head, still chewing. Aunt Martha set her utensils down neatly, her gaze steady and attentive. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, as I plunged in. I lost my job 2 weeks ago. The firm downsized and I was one of the cuts. I've been looking, but nothing yet. I'm running low on savings, and I need help. A loan maybe, just to get by until I land something. The words hung there, heavy and exposed, my hands folding in my lap where no one could see them, trembling, fingers interlacing tightly to still the shake. Silence stretched for a beat, too, the only sound the distant tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. Then Dad erupted first, his face reddening as he slapped his palm on the table, making the silverware jump. "Lost your job? Scarlett, how could you let that happen? You've been there years. Didn't you see it coming?" His voice boomed, accusatory, his eyes narrowing behind his glasses as he pushed them up his nose with a jab of his finger. I flinched inwardly, my shoulders hunching slightly, but kept my expression pleading, eyes wide. "I tried, Dad. It was sudden. Mom cut in, her hand flying to her chest, fingers splaying dramatically over her necklace. "Oh, Scarlett, this is why we always said you should have a backup plan. Accounting is stable, but you can't just coast." She shook her head, lips pursing in disappointment, her chair scraping back an inch as she adjusted her position. Her tone dripped with lectures I'd heard before, but now it sliced deeper, each word a reminder of my supposed failures. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, tasting the bitterness of unshed tears. "I wasn't coasting, Mom. I've always worked hard. Please, can you help? Even a little?" Derek snorted, leaning back with crossed arms, his biceps flexing under his shirt sleeves as if to emphasize his own success. "Help? Sis, come on. I've got my own bills. Mortgage, kids' college funds brewing. You know how it is in finance, one bad quarter and poof. He snapped his fingers, the sharp crack making me jump, his grin wolfish but eyes cold, avoiding mine as he glanced at his phone screen lighting up on the table. Excuses, just as I'd predicted, but hearing them aloud twisted my gut, a hot coil of anger mixing with hurt. Emily chimed in next, her voice syrupy with false sympathy, hand reaching across to pat mine briefly, her touch light, fleeting, like she didn't want to commit. Scar, honey, I'd love to, but we're stretched thin. The house reno ate up everything, and little Timmy's braces. You understand. She withdrew her hand quickly, folding it in her lap, her diamond ring catching the light as she fidgeted with it, twisting it around her finger. The refusals piled on, each one escalating the tension, the air in the room growing stifling as if the oxygen was being sucked out. Dad waved his hand dismissively, his fork gesturing wildly. This is a teachable moment, Scarlett. We can't bail you out every time. Remember when Derek hit a rough patch? He hustled. Didn't ask for handouts. Derek nodded vigorously, his head bobbing, a smug tilt to his chin. But I remembered. That rough patch was a gambling loss, and I'd quietly wired him money, no questions asked. My nails dug into my palms now, the sting grounding me as I fought to keep the facade. But I've helped all of you before. Surgeries, loans, vacations. Mom interrupted, her voice sharpening, eyes flashing. That's different. Family pitches in when it's serious. This, you need to learn responsibility. She stood partially, pushing her chair back with a screech, hands planted on the table as she leaned in. The formal edge crept in, her words turning colder. If you can't stand on your own, maybe it's time we stop enabling you. Enabling? The hypocrisy burned, my breath coming in short bursts, chest heaving subtly. Emily nodded agreement, her lips compressing into a thin line. Yes, Scar, tough love. We're here for moral support, but cash? Can't do it. Derek piled on, his tone final, slamming his glass down with a thud that sloshed wine onto the tablecloth. Look, if you're that desperate, sell some stuff, downsize. Don't drag us down. Drag them down? I was the one who'd lifted them up for years. My vision blurred slightly, hot tears pricking, but I blinked them back, focusing on the pattern of the tablecloth, tracing the threads with my eyes to steady myself. Then Aunt Martha spoke. Her voice soft but firm, cutting through the din like a lifeline. She reached over, her hand covering mine fully, warm and steady, her thumb rubbing gentle circles on my knuckles. Scarlett, I'll help. I don't have much, my pension's small, but I can give you $5,000 from my savings. It's yours, no strings. Her eyes met mine, kind and unwavering, crinkling at the corners with sincerity. The table fell silent again, shocked stares turning her way. Mom huffed, sitting back down with a plop. Martha, that's ridiculous. You need that money for yourself. But Aunt Martha shook her head, her grip tightening on my hand. No, Linda. Family helps family, period. Scarlett's always been there. Now it's my turn. The contrast hit me like a wave, relief and sorrow crashing together. Her offer, from the least able, shone bright against their selfishness. But the others doubled down, the conversation spiraling into a verdict. Dad stood now, his face thunderous, pointing a finger at me. If you're going to beg like this, maybe you don't belong at this table anymore. We're done carrying dead weight. Carrying? The word echoed in my head, my body going numb, fingers slipping from Aunt Martha's as I stared at him. Mom nodded, tears in her eyes, crocodile ones. We love you, but this is it. Figure it out on your own. Derek and Emily murmured agreement, their postures closed off, arms folded. Disowned. Not in words, but in action, their refusal a slamming door. My chair pushed back slowly, legs scraping the floor as I stood, legs wobbly but holding. The room spun faintly, but inside confirmation settled, cold and clear. Their true nature revealed, self-interest bared. Aunt Martha rose too, her hand on my arm, but I gently pulled away, whispering thanks, my voice hoarse. The painful illumination burned, but it freed me. I turned toward the door, each step heavy, their voices fading behind me like echoes of a life I was leaving. My hand reached for the doorknob, fingers brushing the cool brass, twisting it slowly as the latch clicked open, the sound sharp in the sudden hush behind me. But in that frozen instant, with one foot poised over the threshold and the cool evening air whispering against my face, something inside me snapped. Not broke, but ignited. The weight of their words, their cold dismissals piled like bricks on my chest, had reached a tipping point. And now, At the nadir of this humiliation, a fierce clarity surged through me, electric and unyielding. It wasn't an external call, no phone buzzing in my pocket to save the day. It was deeper. An internal summons from the part of me that had hoarded that $47 million secret like a dragon its gold. Right there, amid the echoes of their verdict, I resolved to reveal the truth. Not out of spite, but to reclaim the power they'd stripped away, shifting the entire dynamic in one devastating stroke. My breath caught, a hitch in my throat as I paused, door ajar, the porch light spilling in like an unwelcome spotlight. My free hand clenched at my side, nails biting into my palm, the sting anchoring me as memories of the wind flooded back unbidden, sharp and vivid. That ticket, those numbers aligning like fate's cruel joke, had been my private revolution, but now it demanded to be weaponized. I could feel my heartbeat slow from frantic to steady, each thump a drumbeat of decision, as I turned back slightly, my shoulder brushing the doorframe, eyes scanning their faces one last time. Dad's flushed cheeks, still puffed with self-righteous anger, Mom's teary eyes, performative and shallow, Derek's smug lean against the table, fingers drumming impatiently, Emily's averted gaze, fiddling with her fork, and Aunt Martha, standing apart. Her expression a mix of concern and quiet strength, her hands clasped in front of her like a prayer. The realization deepened, rooting me in place as I let go of the knob, the door swinging shut with a soft thud that sealed my intent. This wasn't just about exposing their hypocrisy, it was about validating my own worth, the years of being the giver now flipping to me as the gatekeeper. My mind raced, piecing it together in fragments. I'd start with the facts, cold and irrefutable, watching their excuses crumble. I won the lottery, I'd say, voice level, no tremor. My lips parted slightly now, testing the words silently, my tongue pressing against my teeth. The power shift would be seismic. They'd scramble, backpedal, their self-interest twisting into feigned joy. But I'd see through it, the revelation a mirror reflecting their true selves back at them. A subtle tremor ran through my legs, knees locking to hold me upright, as I straightened my posture, shoulders rolling back with a faint pop of tension releasing. This internal call changed everything because it wasn't reactive, it was proactive, a choice born from the ashes of their rejection. I'd always been the fixer, but now I fixed myself, severing the toxic bonds in one fell swoop. My eyes narrowed, focusing on the candle flames still flickering on the table, their light dancing mockingly. The humiliation peaked here, disowned, dismissed, but it birthed this resolve, a phoenix moment where pain transmuted to power. I could almost taste the freedom, metallic and sharp on my tongue, as I drew in a deep breath, chest expanding, filling my lungs with resolve. Aunt Martha's offer echoed in my head, her generosity a stark contrast that fueled my decision further. She'd get rewarded, quietly, lavishly, while the others faced the consequences of their choices. My fingers flexed, unclenching from the fist, as I imagined the aftermath, new boundaries, a life unburdened. This wasn't revenge. It was justice, self-administered. The room's air felt charged now, electric with unspoken potential as I pivoted fully back toward them, my sneakers pivoting on the hardwood with a soft squeak. The deepest low had summoned this high, the call to reveal not just the win, but my reclaimed agency. My mind settled, the whirlwind calming to a focused beam as I locked eyes with Dad first, his bluster fading under my steady gaze. This moment, this internal epiphany, reframed everything. The dinner from farce to finale. I'd speak, and the power would tilt irrevocably. My hand rose slightly as if to gesture, but I held it, savoring the anticipation coiling in my gut like a spring. The change was here, now, irrevocable. With that resolve crystallizing in my mind like ice forming on a window pane, I spun fully back toward the dining room, my heel grinding into the floor with a decisive pivot that echoed my inner shift. The door clicked shut behind me, sealing off escape for now, as I faced them head-on, my hands no longer trembling but steady at my sides, fingers flexing open and closed to release the last remnants of tension. This was the moment to reject their hypocrisy. Not with screams or tears but with calm, cutting truth, exposing the rot beneath their familial facade before I walked out for good. Their stunned expressions greeted me. Dad's mouth agape mid-rant, Mom's hand frozen halfway to her glass, Derek's smirk fading into confusion, Emily's eyes widening like saucers. Aunt Martha alone looked relieved, her posture relaxing slightly as she sank back into her chair, knitting forgotten in her lap. I drew a deep breath, the air tasting of cooling gravy and wax from the candles, and let my voice emerge even, measured, like a judge delivering a verdict. Before I go, there's something you all need to know. My words sliced the silence, each one deliberate, my gaze sweeping the table to pin them in place. Dad recovered first, blustering as he half rose, his chair legs scraping harshly. "Scarlett, if you're gonna beg again..." But I cut him off with a raised hand, palm out, the gesture firm, my arms steady despite the adrenaline surging through my veins. "No begging, just facts. I didn't lose my job. That was a test. A lie to see who you'd be when I needed you most." The scramble began instantly, a chaotic flurry of reactions that played out like a bad comedy, their faces twisting in confusion and dawning horror. Mom gasped, her fingers clutching the tablecloth, bunching the fabric until her knuckles whitened. "A test? What on earth?" Derek leaned forward, elbows thudding on the table, his wine glass tipping precariously. "Wait, you're not broke? Then what the hell was that about?" Emily's hand flew to her mouth, nails painted red catching the light, her eyes darting between us all as if seeking an ally. Dad sank back down, his face paling, glasses slipping down his nose as he pushed them up with a shaky finger. "This better not be some joke, young lady." I stood taller, my spine straightening with a subtle crack, feeling the power of the secret uncoil within me like a spring releasing. "No joke. 3 weeks ago I won the lottery, $47 million. After taxes it's still life-changing. I kept it secret because of how you've always treated money, treated me, like a resource, not a person." My voice didn't waver, it grew stronger, each syllable landing like a pebble in still water, rippling out to disrupt their composure. I paced a single step closer, my sneakers soft on the rug, closing the distance to make them feel the weight of my stare. The stunned scramble intensified, their excuses morphing into desperate backpedaling, voices overlapping in a cacophony. Mom's eyes welled with fresh tears, real or not, her hand reaching out tentatively. "Scarlett, honey, we didn't know. If we'd known about the win..." Derek interrupted, his chair shoving back with a screech as he stood, hands gesturing wildly. "Sis, come on, that's huge. We were just... tough love, you know? Congrats!" His grin returned, forced and toothy, but his eyes gleamed with calculation, fingers twitching as if already counting shares. Emily nodded vigorously, her toddler toy forgotten on the floor with a clatter. "Yeah, exactly, we love you. We'd have helped if it was real. This changes everything." Dad cleared his throat, his bluster deflating like a punctured tire, voice gruff but placating. "Well, now that it's out, let's talk. Family sticks together, right?" Their hypocrisy hung thick in the air, pungent as overcooked meat, and I exposed it methodically, calmly, like peeling layers from an onion, each revelation drawing winces. "Does it change everything?" "Really? Because when I needed help you lectured, excused, disowned, but now with money on the table suddenly it's love and unity?" I pointed at Dad first, my finger steady, not accusing but factual. "You said I was dead weight, Dad, after I paid for your knee surgery last year. $15,000 out of pocket, no repayment, no thanks." His mouth opened and closed, fish-like, his hand rubbing his neck where a flush crept up. Turning to Mom, I kept my tone even, my breath controlled despite the heat in my chest. "Mom, you talked about responsibility, but when Emily's wedding went over budget, who covered the extra $8,000? Me, and you toasted her as the responsible one." Mom's tears spilled now, streaking her makeup, her napkin dabbing futilely as she whispered, "We didn't mean it like that." Derek next, my gaze locking on his, unblinking. "Brother, you said don't drag you down, but your bad investment 2 years ago? I loaned you $10,000, still unpaid, and now, you're congratulating me like we're best friends." He averted his eyes, slumping back into his chair with a thud, fingers drumming nervously on the armrest. Emily squirmed, her chair creaking as she shifted. "Sis, But I continued, voice soft but relentless. "Emily, tough love from you? I paid for Timmy's preschool when your husband forgot. $5,000 a year. You called it a gift then. Now when I asked it was braces and Renos." She looked away, biting her lip, the diamond on her finger twisting again. Aunt Martha remained silent, her smile small but proud, her hand folding over the other in her lap, knuckles relaxing. I nodded to her, my voice warming. "Except you, Aunt Martha. You offered everything you had, no questions, no conditions, that's family." Her eyes misted, a subtle nod in return, her shoulders lifting slightly. The exposure complete, their scramble petered out into awkward silence, faces ashen, excuses exhausted. I felt lighter, the burden of secrets and resentments lifting like fog burning off in sunlight. You've shown me who you are. Self-interested, conditional. I don't need that anymore. My words finalized it, a period at the end of a long sentence. I turned then, strides purposeful toward the door, my hand grasping the knob firmly, twisting it open with a click. Cool air rushed in, refreshing against my flushed skin. As I stepped out, their voices rose in a last-ditch chorus. Wait! Scarlett, let's discuss! But I didn't look back. The door swinging shut with a definitive thump, muffling them. My car waited in the driveway, keys jingling in my pocket as I pulled them out, the metal cool and reassuring. Sliding into the seat, the leather creaking under me, I started the engine with a roar, headlights cutting through the dusk. Pulling away, gravel crunching under tires, I glanced in the rear view. The house shrinking, lights glowing but distant. The powerful exit wasn't dramatic, it was quiet liberation, the hypocrisy rejected, my path forward clear and unencumbered. The highway stretched out before me like a dark ribbon under the night sky, my headlights carving twin beams through the inky blackness as I gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles paling against the leather. The adrenaline from the confrontation still buzzed in my veins, a low hum that made my foot press harder on the gas, the engine revving in response. But as the miles ticked by, the toxic fog of that dinner began to lift, replaced by a budding sense of release, like shedding a too tight skin. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, screen lighting up with missed calls, Mom, Derek, Emily. But I ignored them, my thumb hovering before silencing it completely, the vibration dying with a final rattle. Instead, I dialed Aunt Martha, the only name that felt safe, my finger tapping the screen decisively as the Bluetooth connected with a chime. She picked up on the second ring, her voice warm and concerned, cutting through the car's quiet hum. Scarlett, are you okay, dear? That was intense. I could picture her in her modest condo, perhaps settling into her worn armchair, the one with the crochet throw, her knitting needles set aside mid-stitch. I'm fine now, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt, the words flowing easier away from the McMansion's shadow. Actually, better than fine. Can I come over? I need to talk. There was a pause, the faint rustle of her adjusting the phone, then her soft agreement. Of course, doors open, drive safe. The turn-off to her neighborhood came sooner than expected, streetlights casting orange glows on tidy lawns and compact homes, a far cry from my parents' ostentatious sprawl. I parked in her driveway, the gravel softer here, less aggressive under my tires, and stepped out into the crisp air, inhaling deeply, the scent of fresh-cut grass mingling with distant wood smoke. Her porch light flicked on, welcoming as I approached, my sneakers scuffing the concrete steps. The door creaked open before I knocked, Aunt Martha standing there in her cardigan and slippers, arms opening wide. I stepped into her hug, her embrace firm yet gentle, smelling of chamomile tea and lavender soap, a stark contrast to Mom's perfumed performative squeezes. Come in, she said, ushering me inside, her hand light on my back as she closed the door with a soft click. The living room was cozy, lamplights soft on bookshelves crammed with novels and photo frames, many of me as a kid, gap-toothed and grinning, unlike the sibling-centric displays at home. She gestured to the couch, its cushions sinking invitingly as I sat, my body finally unclenching, shoulders dropping with a sigh. Tea? She asked, already moving to the kitchen, her slippers shuffling on the linoleum. Please, I nodded, my fingers tracing the armrest's faded fabric, worn from years of quiet evenings. She returned moments later, balancing 2 mugs on a tray, steam curling up lazily, the clink of spoons against ceramic punctuating the calm. Handing me one, chamomile my favorite, remembered without asking, she settled beside me, her weight dipping the cushion slightly, turning to face me with attentive eyes. Now, tell me everything, she said simply. No judgment, just openness, her hands wrapping around her mug for warmth. I took a sip, the hot liquid soothing my raw throat, and began recounting the dinner, not the fabricated job loss, but the real undercurrents. My words tumbling out in a rush at first, then slowing as I described their reactions. As I spoke, she listened without interrupting, her head tilting slightly, fingers occasionally tightening on the mug when I mentioned the disowning, her lips pressing into a thin line. They said I was dead weight, I confessed, my voice cracking on the words, setting the mug down on the coffee table with a gentle thud to avoid spilling. Her hand reached for mine, covering it fully, her skin papery but strong, thumbs stroking my knuckles in slow circles. "Oh, Scarlett," she murmured, her eyes misting but steady. "They're blind to what they've had in you. Always have been." The contrast hit me then, visceral and profound as we sat there in her humble space, no chandeliers or fine china, just genuine connection. At the dinner? Every word had been laced with barbs, their bodies angled away, forks scraping plates like accusations. Here Aunt Martha leaned in, her posture open, eyes locked on mine without distraction. I squeezed her hand back, feeling the subtle pulse in her wrist, a living link to something real. "You offered everything, even when you have so little," I said, my gaze dropping to our joined hands, noting the age spots on hers. "Earned from years of teaching kids who couldn't afford supplies. Why?" She smiled faintly, withdrawing her hand to sip her tea, the mug lifting with a slight tremble before steadying. "Because you're family, dear. Not because of what you give, but who you are. I've watched you carry them all these years, quietly, without fanfare. When my Henry passed, you were the one who checked in weekly, brought casseroles, listened to my ramblings." Her voice softened, eyes distant for a moment, then refocusing. "The others? They sent cards, maybe called once. Blood doesn't make bonds, actions do." Her words settled over me like a blanket, warm and affirming, easing the ache from the dinner's chill. I leaned back into the couch, the springs creaking softly, and shared more. The lottery details I'd skimmed earlier, watching her eyes widen, not with greed but wonder. 47 million, she whispered, setting her mug down with a clatter, hand pressing to her chest. "My goodness, and you kept it secret, smart girl." "No demands. No calculations. Just pride," her smile crinkling her cheeks. We talked for hours, the clock ticking softly on the mantel, conversation flowing from the toxic ties I'd severed to the chosen family I'd built. She shared stories of her own, estranged from siblings over money long ago, finding solace in friends and community. "Biological doesn't mean forever," she said, rising to refill our mugs, the kettle whistling faintly in the kitchen. Returning, she handed mine over, steam wafting between us. "You've got allies now, me for one, and others you'll find." By midnight, exhaustion tugged at me, but it was peaceful, not draining. I stood, hugging her again, her arms encircling me tightly, chin resting on my shoulder. "Stay as long as you need," she offered, but I shook my head, my hand lingering on her arm. "I'll be back soon, promise." Stepping out, the night air cooler now, stars pricking the sky. I felt the shift solidify, the dinner's poison neutralized by this genuine warmth. Aunt Martha waved from the door, silhouette framed in light as I backed out, tires whispering on gravel. Driving home, windows cracked to let in the breeze, I realized true allies weren't born. They were earned, and in her, I'd found the foundation for my new world. The next morning dawned bright and insistent, sunlight slanting through my bedroom curtains in golden shafts that dust motes danced in, pulling me from a dreamless sleep with a gentle persistence. I rolled over, my hand fumbling for my phone on the nightstand, the cool glass screen coming to life under my thumb to reveal a barrage of notifications. Texts, voicemails, missed calls, stacking up like accusations from the night before. My parents, Derek, Emily, their names lit up the display, each one a tether I was determined to cut. Sitting up, sheets pooling around my waist, I felt the aftermath settle over me like a heavy cloak, the revelations from dinner still raw but no longer paralyzing. This was the moment to build my fortress, to handle the fallout with deliberate boundaries, establishing rules that would protect the new life I was claiming. I swung my legs over the bed's edge, feet planting firmly on the rug, toes curling into the fibers for grounding, and began scrolling through the messages, my breath steady as I prepared to respond, not in anger but with unyielding clarity. The first text from Mom popped up, timestamped just after midnight. "Scarlett, we need to talk. Come back over today. Love you." Her words, punctuated with a heart emoji, made my lip curl slightly, a micro twitch of disdain as I recalled her tearful excuses. I tapped the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard, the cursor blinking expectantly. No more enabling. I typed slowly, deliberately. "No, I meant what I said. Don't contact me unless it's an emergency. Send." The whoosh of the message departing felt like exhaling a long-held breath, my shoulders dropping an inch as I set the phone down momentarily, rubbing my temples where a faint ache throbbed. Derek's voicemail was next. I hit play, speaker on low, his voice booming through the tinny audio as I stood and padded to the kitchen, coffee maker gurgling to life with a press of the button. "Sis, hey, that was intense last night. Look, congrats on the win. Seriously huge. Let's grab lunch, talk investments. I know some guys." His tone shifted from faux casual to eager, the greed seeping through like oil on water. I poured coffee, the dark liquid steaming into my mug, hand steady despite the surge of irritation tightening my jaw. Investments? As if he hadn't called me a drag hours ago. I deleted the voicemail with a swipe, the icon vanishing, and texted back, "No thanks, respect my space. No more loans or advice." My thumb pressed send harder than necessary, the phone vibrating confirmation as I stirred in cream, spoon clinking against ceramic in rhythmic protest. Emily's messages came in a flurry, a chain of bubbles. "Scar? What happened?" "We were shocked. Timmy misses his auntie. Call me?" Followed by photos of her kid, chubby cheeks smeared with breakfast, as if guilt could reel me back. I leaned against the counter, mug warming my palms, the heat seeping into my skin as I stared at the images, a pang of fondness for my nephew flickering before resolve doused it. She hadn't offered help, she'd excused away with braces and Renos. I replied curtly, "Glad Timmy's well, but I'm done, don't use him to manipulate. Block me if you need to. Send." The finality of it made my chest tighten briefly, a fleeting sorrow for the innocents caught in crossfire, but I sipped my coffee, the bitterness mirroring my mood, and moved on. Dad's call log showed 3 attempts, no messages left. Typical, expecting me to chase. I dialed him back, phone to ear as I paced the kitchen, linoleum cool under my bare feet, each step a measured affirmation. He answered on the first ring, his voice gruff and hesitant. "Scarlett, that you?" "Yes," I said flatly, stopping by the window, fingers parting the blinds to peer at the quiet street outside, cars gliding by obliviously. "We overreacted," he started, clearing his throat with a phlegmy rumble. "Come home, we'll sort it. Family's family." The words hung expectant, but I cut through. "No, Dad, you showed me what family means to you. Conditional. I'm setting boundaries, no contact for now. If I need you, I'll reach out." Silence stretched, his breathing heavy on the line, then a sigh. "You're making a mistake." Click. I ended the call first, phone lowering slowly, my reflection in the window showing a woman with set jaw, eyes unyielding. The disconnection felt like snipping a wire, sparks of freedom in the aftermath. With the immediate barrage handled, I sank into a chair at the kitchen table, mug cradled between hands, steam curling up to fog my vision slightly, as deeper reflections surfaced. This wasn't just responses, it was erecting walls, brick by brick, each boundary a safeguard against the toxicity that had drained me for years. I opened my notes app, fingers flying across the screen, listing rules. No financial discussions, no uninvited visits, communication on my terms only. The list grew, each tap a declaration, my posture straightening as empowerment bloomed in my chest, warm and expansive. But the aftermath wasn't all digital. A knock at my door mid-morning jolted me, mug nearly spilling as I set it down with a clatter. Peering through the peephole, I saw Derek standing there, shifting foot to foot, hand raking through his hair in that nervous habit. My stomach twisted, but I opened the door a crack, chain still latched, my body blocking entry. "What?" I asked, voice cool, hand gripping the frame tightly, knuckles whitening. He grinned sheepishly. "Hands up in surrender." "Whoa, easy, just wanted to chat in person, about the win, awesome, maybe I can help manage it?" His eyes darted past me, as if scouting for signs of wealth, foot inching forward. I held firm, door unmoving. "No, I told you via text. Boundaries, Derek, leave." My words were steel, no waver, my free hand ready to close the gap. He faltered, grin fading, stepping back with hands dropping. "Come on, sis." But I shut the door firmly, lock clicking into place, leaning against it as my heart raced, breaths coming quick and shallow. The wood vibrated slightly from his lingering presence, then footsteps retreated, fading down the hall. Victory, small but significant, coursed through me, steadying my pulse. The rest of the day unfolded in similar fortification, blocking numbers temporarily, drafting an email to the extended family outlining my distance, fingers pausing only to choose words carefully. No venom, just facts. Due to recent events, I'm stepping back, Respect my privacy. Send. As evening fell, shadows lengthening across my apartment, I sat on the couch, knees drawn up, phone finally quiet. The silence was profound, not lonely but protective, a fortress built from the rubble of betrayal. Aunt Martha texted once, "Proud of you. Here if needed." I smiled, thumbs responding warmly, the exchange a window in my walls, open by choice. This handling of the aftermath wasn't reactive. It was intentional, each action a stone in my new foundation. No more doormat, I was the architect now, rules etched in permanence. The weight lifted fully as I stood, stretching arms overhead, vertebrae popping softly. Tomorrow, the world awaited, unbound. With the boundaries firmly in place, like invisible walls now patrolled by my unwavering resolve, I turned my attention inward, channeling the energy once wasted on family drama into something tangible and transformative. The morning after setting those limits, I sat at my desk in the quiet of my apartment, sunlight filtering through the blinds in warm stripes across the wood surface, my laptop humming softly as it powered on. This was the day I'd start reclaiming my legacy. Not the tainted family name riddled with greed and conditional love, but a new version, forged from my success and aimed at positive impact. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, nails tapping lightly on the keys as I opened a blank document, the cursor blinking expectantly. The $47 million wasn't just freedom, it was a tool, and today, I'd wield it to build something that honored the giver I'd always been, but on my own terms. I started with research, my mouse clicking through tabs on charitable foundations, the screen glowing with possibilities that made my pulse quicken slightly. Scrolling through sites, I paused on ones focused on financial literacy for underprivileged families. Ironic, given my own clan's issues, but fitting. My eyes scanned articles, absorbing stats on generational poverty, my chin resting on my hand, elbow digging into the desk's edge. This wasn't random. It was deliberate reclamation. The family name Johansson had always been synonymous with my parents' flashy deals and siblings' superficial wins. Now I'd redefine it through quiet philanthropy, creating ripples that helped others avoid the traps I'd escaped. By midday, I'd drafted a plan, my keyboard clacking steadily, words flowing as I outlined the Scarlett Johansson Foundation, yes, using the full name, claiming it boldly. Fingers flying, I typed mission statements, empowering individuals through education on money management, breaking cycles of dependency. My back straightened. A subtle shift as pride swelled in my chest, the chair creaking under me. But this was deeper than words. It was action. I picked up my phone, the cool metal pressing into my palm, and dialed my financial advisor, Sarah, whom I'd vetted weeks ago. She answered promptly, her voice crisp and professional over the line. "Scarlett, good to hear from you. What's next?" I paced the room as we spoke, my socks whispering on the carpet, cord trailing behind me. "I want to set up a foundation. Allocate $10 million initially. Investments for sustainability, grants for programs." My free hand gestured emphatically, as if she could see, fingers slicing the air. Sarah hummed thoughtfully, papers rustling on her end. "Smart. We can structure it as a nonprofit. Tax advantages, perpetual funding via endowments." We delved into details, her questions probing, my answers firm. Focus on workshops for single parents, scholarships for accounting students from low-income homes. Micro actions unfolded. Me jotting notes on a pad, pen scratching paper, pausing to sip water, glass clinking on the desk. Rereading lines aloud, voice testing the phrasing for impact. As the conversation progressed, a realization deepened, settling in my gut like a warm stone. This was me reclaiming not just the name but my narrative. For years I'd been the Johansson who fixed others' messes, invisible in the shadow of their successes. Now, I'd be the one creating legacies that mattered. Sarah suggested partners, nonprofits like financial empowerment centers, and I nodded, though unseen. My reflection in the window nodding back, eyes bright. "Send me proposals," I said, ending the call with a click, phone set down gently, screen fading to black. Afternoon brought more depth. I emailed Aunt Martha, fingers hesitating before typing. "Want your input on something big." Her reply came quick, warm as always. "Call me." I did, settling on the couch, legs curling under me, pillow hugged to my chest. "I'm starting a foundation," I explained, voice eager now, the words tumbling. She listened, her breath soft over the line, then responded thoughtfully. "That's wonderful, dear. Focus on real people. Stories like yours, overlooked givers." Her advice grounded me, her tone encouraging, no demands. We brainstormed programs in her old school district, her knitting needles clicking faintly in the background, a rhythmic underscore to our ideas. But the core event was my internal commitment, manifesting in solitary actions, printing forms, the printer whirring and spitting pages, signing with a flourish, pen gliding smoothly, scanning and emailing to lawyers, mouse clicking submit. Each step was a reclamation. The family name now tied to generosity, not greed. I stood, stretching arms overhead, vertebrae popping, feeling taller, unburdened. Dinner that evening was simple. Salad assembled, fork spearing leaves, as I reviewed the day's progress, laptop open on the counter, screen illuminating my face. The positive impact visualized. Kids learning budgeting, families breaking free, all under the Johansson banner, redefined. By nightfall, as I lay in bed, sheets cool against my skin, hands folded over my stomach, the realization crystallized fully. This wasn't about erasing the past, it was overwriting it, using success to heal wounds, mine and others. My breath evened, eyes closing on a future bright with purpose, the family ties severed but legacy reborn. As the days blurred into weeks following the launch of my foundation, I found myself drawn to quieter moments of reflection, seeking a peace that had eluded me for so long amid the noise of family expectations. One crisp autumn evening, I bundled up in a soft scarf, the wool scratching gently against my neck, and drove to a nearby park, the tires humming over pavement still warm from the day's sun. The lot was nearly empty, just a few dog walkers in the distance, their leashes taut as pups tugged ahead. I parked and stepped out, the door thudding shut behind me, keys jingling into my pocket as I wandered toward a secluded bench overlooking a small pond, leaves crunching underfoot with each deliberate step. Sitting down, the wood cool and slightly damp through my jeans, I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling the chill seep in, but welcoming it as a cleanse. The water rippled softly, disturbed by a light breeze that carried the earthy scent of fallen foliage, and I stared at its surface, my reflection fragmented and shifting. This was the space for final reckoning. Not with them, but with me. My mind drifted back, unbidden at first, to childhood scenes. Mediating sibling fights, my small hands pushing them apart while parents watched from afar. High school awards tucked away in drawers, uncelebrated. The steady drip of my contributions, met with indifference. Each memory surfaced like bubbles in the pond, popping quietly, releasing the hold they'd had. But as they faded, a deeper truth emerged, settling in my chest with a warmth that countered the evening air. My worth wasn't in their validation, never had been. It was internal, woven from the resilience I'd built, the kindness I'd given despite the lack of return. I unclenched my fists, which I'd unconsciously balled in my lap, fingers stretching out to trace the bench's grain. Rough under my fingertips, the lottery, the test, the severing, they were tools, not the source. The peace came from recognizing that I was enough, always had been, without their applause or aid. Aunt Martha's face flickered in my thoughts, her genuine offer a beacon that had illuminated the path. I'd rewarded her quietly, a trust fund for her retirement, enough to travel or spoil grandnieces, delivered with a handwritten note, for the family that matters. Her tearful call, voice cracking with gratitude, had affirmed it. But even that was secondary. The core was this self-validation, a quiet acceptance that bloomed as I breathed deeply, lungs filling with crisp air, exhaling the last remnants of doubt. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in oranges and pinks, the colors reflecting on the water like a mirror to my evolving calm. I stood slowly, knees popping faintly, and walked the pond's edge, pebbles skittering under my shoes. No more chasing approval, my life was mine to shape, foundation work during days, evenings like this for solitude. The clarity was profound, a steady flame within, not flickering with others' winds. As darkness gathered, I returned to my car, hand on the handle, pausing to glance back at the bench, now shadowed. This reflection wasn't an end, but a beginning, the peace of knowing my value was inherent, unshakable. Driving home, windows cracked to let in the night breeze, I felt whole, the journey's pains transmuted into strength. So, what do you think? Did I cut ties too harshly, or was it exactly what I needed? Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts, or even your own story of breaking free from toxic family dynamics. I'd love to hear how you've reclaimed your worth. And if this resonated, hit that like button, share with someone who needs it, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life tales of empowerment and transformation. Remember, your value isn't defined by others, it's yours to own. Stay strong out there.